So first of all, thank you so much for you joining of this PRSCO meeting. It's so happy to join over the world. So we have a very important announcement of the 2 or 3 topics. The first one is a very important one, presidency transfer ceremony. So I'd like to invite the president of the PRSCO. So please come to the Professor Hidehiko Kanegae on stage. Yeah. And he really worked well and the organizer of this PRSCO, and also the big contribution to the development of the PRSCO. And I also would like to invite the new president of the PRSCO, Professor Inko Park. So please come to the stage. It's a really nice ceremony. So I'd like you to sing the speech for each one. Is it okay?
Thank you very much, and congratulations for almost finished, but don't escape everyone to outside. Some of the presentation remaining, but anyhow, this conference, 2024 PRSCO, is so great success. Congratulations. And also, according to the tradition, yeah, of course, according to the constitution, I'm still in the president, but usually after finishing of the well organization of the conference, we need to relay for the baton, like Olympic Games, not yet, coming to the relay one, but this is the craft whiskey of Kyoto. The last PRSCO was held, but in a cyberspace. As you know, the current, our society, not only for Japan, around the world, shifted for the combination together with the real and cyber one. But unfortunately, during at the end of the COVID-19, our PRSCO conference before was held in the cyberspace, but the origin was Kyoto. Then I would like to hand over for the presidency, and also at the same time to the very rare Japanese whiskey, rare one for the Kyoto original craft one. Yeah, congratulations, and please obey to us to make a good leadership for our PRSCO in the future. Thank you very much. You are the first mission. You have
drink?
Yeah, no, not drink. When you drink, please after coming back to the night. Yes, congratulations. Thank you again. And taking a picture.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Everyone, don't ask me many things too much. Your active current president is Professor Park. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Kanegae. Well, I'm really honored and super excited to take this role of PRSCO president. I thank Professor Kanegae for his outstanding leadership as PRSCO president. Actually, he has organized, this conference, and our organization has guided very well, during very hard times, particularly during the COVID-19. Actually, and I expect in the future he also support our organization as well. Actually, last summer, he visited South Korea and provided very invaluable advice on the operations of PRSCO and the preparation of this conference. Actually, his support and insight have been very, great help to me. And I look forward to continue your support in the future as well. And as we move forward, I'm committed to strengthening diversity and equity and inclusion in our organization. We'll focus on supporting female scholars and early career researchers and many scholars from developing countries, and to make sure they have opportunities to engage in a lot of different academic activities. And that's my only one commitment. And together we will make this organization very inclusive and dynamic community that advances the field of regional science. Okay, I look forward to working with all of you guys to achieve our shared goals. Thank you.
So please stay here and please give the mic. Yeah. So next one is the first task for the new president.
Oh, okay.
So please stay this one.
Good new job.
So next one is at a very important ceremony for the PRSCO Award for Best Paper by a Young Regional Scientist. So this one is the selecting committee chair is Professor Dusan from the Chile. So we have a lot of the nice paper candidate, and we evaluated very precisely way to this one. The winner of this young regional scientist is this one. Yeah, congratulations, Hyeongju. So please come into the stage. So this is just a very important first task for the new president of this one. Yeah, please come. Yeah.
Read the award. PRSCO Award for Best Paper by a Young Scholar Regional Scientist 2024. This certificate is presented to Hyeongju for the paper, Urban to Rural Migration, Determinants by Life Cycle, Integrating Individual and Regional Characteristics, at the 28th Pacific Conference of the Regional Science Association International, Daegu, South Korea, 4th to 7th August 2024. Okay, my name is Ingo Park.
So congratulations. I would like to do something, the short speech or something like that. So.
Here. Hello, my name is Hyeongju, a PhD student at Seoul National University in South Korea. It's actually my first time participating in PRSCO conference, so I'm even more truly grateful to receive such a prestigious award at PRSCO. To briefly introduce my research, it aims to compare the differences between older adults and younger adults who have migrated to rural areas from Seoul, the metropolitan city in South Korea, especially focusing on individual characteristics and regional factor. And the result highlights the older adults exhibit a tendency to enjoy the superior natural environments of suburban rural areas while pursuing their continuous productive activities in the agriculture sector. And in contrast, younger adults tend to seek their new ways of life in aspiring creative economic environments and less densely populated atmosphere in rural areas. And they migrated to even more distant rural areas exploratively. So this research suggests that urban to rural migration should be viewed as a social phenomenon considering the broader demographic, social, and economic context that drive such movement. Anyway, I pray that this research can contribute, even in a small way, to delivering a hopeful message to those concerned about the future of non-urban areas. Anyway, I'm genuinely delighted to receive such positive feedback on my research. I'll continue to dedicate myself to even more in-depth studies. Additionally, I look forward to collaborating with the junior and senior researchers here and our IPP lab colleagues. This is an opportunity to express my gratitude. So I'd like to thank my advisor, Professor Kwon Park. Yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe it's really personal, but I'd like to say that I thank God, my Father, for granting me wisdom and strength. Thank you very much.
You know what? I never, intervened in any, process in evaluating the papers. Believe me.
Yeah, congratulations for the very nice one. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So next, I'd like to do something in the announcement of the this meeting. So now we have a very nice friend of the all over the world. So like this one, Australian, New Zealand, Bangladesh, Canadian, Chilean, Colombian, Ecuadorian, India, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Mexico, Thailand, Western. So we really expect that the more expand or development of our friend in the PRSCO. So it's really welcome to the joining of our team like this. And we also have a very nice journal like these three. A paper in regional science and regional science policy and practice. And final one is also the very new one, Asian Pacific Journal of Regional Science. It's also the nice high impact factor citation like this one. So I really encourage your paper submit to these journals. So I also inform to you the next venue of the PRSCO in 2025. It will be held on the Colombo, Sri Lanka, like this. Almost just fixed of the date, like this one, end of January. So I'd like you to just starting making your abstract paper for submitting of this one. So I really want to meet in the next year at the Colombo. And also, this one is also the tentative situation, but almost fixed of the next venue will be Australia, Melbourne, in the 2026. Around the September to December, not decided yet, but I also would like you to join of this nice conference next year. And 2027, it's also a tentative situation, but now we have a good negotiated with the Manila, Philippines. It's a Summer Institute situation. So it's also a very nice one. It will be held on the Manila. So it's a really welcome to join this Summer Institute also. So this is my final PowerPoint file. So thank you so much. You joined the PRSCO 2024. And thank you so much, especially the LOC member. It's a really nice and well management. Thank you so much. So clap to your friends for the LOC. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the very nice sponsors. All the best. And also finally, our very memorial 30th anniversary meeting also have a nice information about this one. Yeah, Jayon, please come in.
All right, so I'll be very brief. Hope you enjoyed Daegu. First of all, thank you for the meeting organizers, especially the student helpers. You've been very efficient, and we really enjoyed the meeting. And going to the, before I talk about the 30th anniversary, I'll come back to talk about it later. But, some more. If you can find the flyer on the table, this is our annual meeting. We're celebrating the 64th annual meeting of WRSA in Las Vegas. So it'll be February 12th through 15th next year, just over 6 months from today. No, it's not working. Is it? Oh, okay. So this is our second time after almost 58 years. So it'll be the meeting venue, Hilton Lake, Las Vegas, not on the strip. Don't get scared, you're not gonna lose money because there's no casino. However, it's close enough to casino and airports, just 20 minutes, 25 minutes by Uber. And this is how it looks like. It's a beautiful area. And the best part is we're not meeting in August. It's February, the best time to visit Las Vegas. And again, the meeting kicks off on Wednesday, February 12th, and wraps around 15th, Saturday. And we're planning to have a field trip on the last day. And the paper submission is October 15th. By our tradition, we don't accept abstract. We only accept the full paper. However, the good news is we usually extend the full paper submission by mid to late part of November. And you can use a QR code to find the call for paper in detail. And also, I want to announce the two home awards that we are the very proud home for Charles Thibault Prize. We are celebrating 39th annual competition for the Thibault Prize. And you can read how impactful his research for not only us, all the regional scientists. And it is given for the best paper presented in our annual meeting by grad students. And the prize money is $1,000 to defray your attendance cost. And you are all invited to, authors are invited to submit their winning paper to our official journal, Annals of Regional Science. And the hard deadline for this paper submission is October 15th. Another award that we have, what is it? Oops. I'm sorry. Yeah. We also have a Stow Johansson Spring Award given for the early career scholar who earned a Ph.D. within the last 5 years. And again, it will be awarded to the paper presented by early career scholar in our annual meeting. The prize money is $500. Please submit your paper, and in your submission system, you'll find the check mark, consider my paper for Spring Award or Thibault Prize. Lastly, but very importantly, for the first time in WRSA history, we will cover either partially or fully of those up to 20 graduate student and junior scholars accommodation, hotels, and also the free registration to nurture the future generation of WRSA and regional science in general. Okay? Thank you, and see you all in Las Vegas. It's not moving. One more time. All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you have been enjoying the conference much. Okay. Yesterday, we had the privilege of hearing from a range of distinguished speakers who provided valuable insights into sustainable regional development. So today, we will continue our journey with additional exceptional presentations from leading experts in regional science. So let's begin our first keynote speech session. So our first keynote speaker today is Geoffrey Hewings. And Geoffrey Hewings is an Emeritus professor at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign in the United States. He specializes in modeling urban and regional economic systems using econometric input-output models applied in various countries. At the Regional Economics Application Laboratory, REAR, which he founded, his research addresses issues like earthquake impacts and redevelopment in Chicago's Calumet region. The lab also trains students in advanced econometric and regional science method for roles in global institutions like the World Bank and academic positions worldwide. So he has published extensively, contributing significantly to regional science and urban economics. So please join me in welcoming Geoffrey Hewings.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hyeongju. I think we should give a special round of applause to you for your wonderful organization of the events in this meeting. You're a wonderful MC, and no good deed goes unpunished. So I'm sure that many other organizations are going to invite you to come and help them organize the meeting. So, Dr. Jung, thank you very, very much for all your work. I'd also like to thank Dr. Hans Westland, the president of RSAI, for coming to the meeting, and to congratulate Dr. Hidehiko Kanegae, the retiring president of PRSCO, and to welcome and congratulate Dr. In-Kwon Park, the incoming president of PRSCO, all ably assisted by Dr. Suzuki, the executive secretary. And these people are working behind the scenes, and it's very nice that we can congratulate them and recognize them today. I would like to just offer a few remarks on the theme of demographic challenges to economic development. And I chose this title to reflect and honor the contributions and assistance that have been provided to me over the last 2 to 3 decades by a string of very fine Korean students who've come to Illinois to obtain PhDs or to spend 3 to 6 months, sometimes a year, as visiting scholars. And these people have been awe-inspiring to me because they have worked so hard, they have done so well, and they continue to do a very good job and reflect very favorably on both the institutions from which they graduated as undergraduates and now continuing to work in a number of very important institutions within Korea, KRIS, KDI, KOTI, and the Bank of Korea. And I've listed their names, many of them, but they've been an absolute delight. And so this is a way of saying thank you to them for all their help and their contributions. Do you want me to be closer? Okay, all right, okay. All right, so let's move ahead to the presentation. I'm going to give an overview of some demographic changes and their implications. I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the hot issues that's come back into the fore again, and that is the impact of demographic changes on income inequality. And I think it's important for us to address this because I think we tend to get carried away in our analysis with a focus on the industry side and less so on the demographic side. And so what I hope to do is to convince you that we perhaps might need to go back and think about this. And I was very much stimulated as a young, newly minted PhD by a paper in the Papers in Regional Science, or it was called Papers and Proceedings at that time, by Torsten Hagstrand, the Swedish geographer, who in his presidential address made the comment, what about people in regional science? And I think he made a very strong case for us to make sure that we don't forget how people operate. And a good example of this was the academy that we had on the day before the meeting started, addressing issues of happiness. And I think this is another reflection, another dimension of the demographic side that would be very important for us to address. So I'm going to focus on much more traditional parts of the demographic side. In particular, I want to look at the issues of the structural changes that are taking place in that demographic pantheon, and try to see how we can address their implications and look at some of the policy implications. And so one of the most dramatic changes has been the aging of our populations. And most countries are now, even China, are experiencing a growth in the population over 65 to the tune of 20% or more. In Japan, it's approaching 30% of the population. And the question is, how are we going to deal with this increased aging population? And there are issues about the role of increased productivity. Where should investment in human capital be placed? And there is all this presence that we should only invest in younger people. But a lot of scholars are now saying that's misguided. We've got to also invest in some of the older people. Not necessarily people my age, but at least people who are in their 50s. And there has been a very, very negative reaction in the private sector towards investment in that age group. The other issue to address aging population is in-migration. And of course, this has become a very, very hot and contentious issue in Europe and in the United States, particularly polarizing political views with the notion that if a certain person was elected president, he is going to try to export 18 million immigrants back to Mexico and Central America. How that's going to be done, I have no idea. The other issue is extending the retirement age. The retirement age of 65 was proposed over 100 years ago. But now we're living much, much longer. And does it make any sense that we sort of keep this notion that at that age, people are ready to stop working? And perhaps we're going to have to look at that issue. So we try to look at some of these issues and address them. So here is the graph. You can see that this rapid climb in the percentage of aging population has really taken off in the decades since 1990. And the effect of it is a very dramatic change in the population pyramids in developed economies, where we had a sort of a bulge from the birth rate after the Second World War, but that is now going to transform itself into almost a rectangular shape, where the number of people in the higher age groups is increasing. At the same time, the numbers in the lower age groups is decreasing. And you can see this in the data in the little table below there, that the age group, for example, 25 to 44 in the state of Illinois, where I live, is going to decline by 8% between 2000 and 2030, whereas the age groups 45 to 65 and over are going to increase by 14 and 60%. We're going to have an increase of almost 1 million people of over 65. And so those are really dramatic changes, and I think that they are ones that we need to address and to look at very carefully the economic implications. I mentioned this notion of productivity. A lot of you who work in labor economics are very familiar with this hump-shaped curve, and the notion is that one's productivity increases until you're in your 40s, and then it begins to decline, and then you move into a period of retirement. And a lot of people are challenging this because they're saying, no, productivity does not decline. In many cases, it increases. Qualitatively, it may change in very, very dramatic and very positive ways. But if you look at what is happening in terms of investment in human capital, most of the investment takes place on the left side of the curve. and very little investment takes place on the right side of the curve. The second part of this hump-shaped curve that's important is the composition of income is also changing, with increasing dependence on non-wage and salary income. And this, as Piketty has reminded us, is the major source of the increases in inequality that we're seeing in the world. Yes, there are still significant differentials in wage and salary income, but it's the notion of the contributions of non-wage and salary, income from dividends, from assets, from ownership of capital, that are really differentiating our populations and making that income inequality so much more unequal. So what we are trying to look at is one of the issues I said we deal with this aging population is to have an increase in immigration. And here is a really contentious issue, particularly if you're looking at this at the regional level. Regions typically do not issue visas. That's the purview of the national government. But what they can do is make it more or less attractive for immigrants to come into their states. But if they do, we're faced with some contentious. What are the positive and negative effects on a local economy of increasing immigration? One of them is there will be a crowding out effect, all right, that immigrants will displace particularly low-income workers who are resident in the community. There will be a reduction of wages as a result of this, and it will generate higher income disparities because we're going to have more people at the lower end of the income spectrum. On the other hand, people say, no, the positive benefits from this. It'll change the age structure, particularly the imbalance that's being caused by the aging population. It will have impacts on solvency of our social security systems because we'll have more younger people working. And so the debate is which ones of these things are dominant in any particular context. And so what we have been doing is looking at this in the context of Chicago. If we were able to attract more immigrants from our current number to something approaching 100,000 immigrants, potentially up to 150,000 immigrants each year. And what we discover is that the dependency ratio that with aging and no immigration would increase to 32% would drop under the most favorable immigration rate back to 19%, which was the rate in 2005. And the dependency ratio is the share of the total population which is not working. So they're either too young or they're too old. They've retired. Okay. So what is the impacts on some major aggregates? Well, let's look at the first contention, that it has a negative impact on wages. The answer is yes, in the short run. Not surprisingly, the inflow of young immigrants who tend to have lower capital labor ratios, that's going to decrease wages. But what about other aspects of this? The impact on gross regional product. An increase in immigrants has a very positive impact. We have more people producing goods and services, so gross product goes up. But supposing we measure the gross product per capita, what happens is initially a decline, but then over time, as the immigrants acquire more skills, more training, greater investment in human capital, that per capita income, per capita product starts to rise again. So the issue here is much more complex than just a very simple linear path. One of the most important implications is that it will have a decrease in the amount of taxes that will be necessary per person to enact, because we have more people in the labor force, more people working, and younger people working. So as a result, this will potentially reduce the disparities that we are seeing in terms of the funding necessary to avoid bankruptcy in our social security systems. So the answer for all of this is it's much more complicated. There isn't a simple story we can tell. What about if we increase the retirement age? Well, in places like the US, there is no retirement age, except for a few occupations like airline pilots. But everybody else can basically work until they're fired or they decide to retire. And so what we've looked at is, let's suppose we had a retirement age and we extended it. We tried to keep people in the labor force longer, and you can see what happens. We get the same impact in the short run on wages that we had with immigrants coming in. There's a decline because there's a lower capital labor ratio. And so the more we delay retirement, the more people will be in the labor force, and the competitive pressures on that will result in wages declining. But in terms of per capita gross product, it has a positive effect. We have more people coming or remaining in the labor force. They're going to be producing goods and services that will contribute to increasing that gross product. So the message from all of this is, most importantly, that we've got to get away in our modeling from assuming that households are homogeneous. They're not. There's enormous heterogeneity in this. And some work with some subset of the Korean mafia has explored a whole bunch of this impacts. And I'll just highlight very, very quickly some of the implications. If we use a representative household in our econometric input-output models, you can see that the black line in the middle is the rate of growth of consumption in the region between now and 2030. But look at the variance when we disaggregate by, in this case, by age. The higher age groups are growing much more rapidly. The lower age groups are actually declining in terms of their share of consumption within the region. Now, what are the implications of that? Well, we have data now that tell us how people of different ages spend money on food, beverages, tobacco, clothing, healthcare, transportation, whatever. And what we see is not dramatic differences, but differences that, when combined with changes in the volume of people in each of these cohorts, result in dramatic changes in types of goods and services that will be demanded over the next 20 or 30 years. So the implication here is we need to spend much, much more time disaggregating the household sector. Secondly, when we look at our demography, it's probably the most mobile form of capital. It's much more mobile than physical capital. And Jae-Wong Lim, in his doctoral dissertation, was able to access data to look at the way in which people leaving Chicago moved to other parts of the country, and a red arrow indicates that more people left than came. And you can see, for the most part, Chicago was a net exporter of human capital. But not only was the human capital leaving, the human capital was also endowed with wages and salaries. And so we were able to look at the flows, not only in terms of people, but in terms of money. And obviously, it kind of paralleled what we saw before. And one of the interesting aspects of this, and I'm going to jump ahead here in the interest of time, is that we had many years where net migration was zero, and yet we lost $1 billion of income per year. How could that happen? The stylized facts are the incoming migrants tended to be younger. For example, recent college graduates, they had much lower incomes. Those leaving tended to be older, in their late 20s, early 30s, endowed with much greater human capital, higher wages and salaries. Well, what does 1 billion loss of income mean? It generates about 20 to 30,000 jobs if it was spent. In a good year, Chicago creates about 60 to 80,000 jobs. So equivalent of 1/3 to 1/2 of annual job creation is being lost because of net out-migration of income. And this is the sort of dynamics associated with the demographic side that we have not paid enough attention to. And clearly, it's very important. So I'm going to jump over this and come to the last part, which is focusing on ways in which we can endogenize households in our formal models. And I'm going to draw very much on the ideas of the Japanese economist Kenichi Miyazawa. And this work was conducted by Kijin Kim, who is now working at the Asian Development Bank in Manila as part of his doctoral dissertation. And basically what we do is we endogenize consumption, that's the C columns, and endogenize wages and salaries, that's the V rows in this particular diagram. And these are surrounding the inter-industry matrix in a classic input-output system. And what we want to do is basically understand the dynamics of income formation, and in particular, to look at this in terms of income inequality. And I want to just, before I get to that, highlight something which is very, very important to understand. I said there's no retirement age in the US. A lot of people retire still in their 60s and then find they don't have enough money. And what you see here is there's been a rapid increase in the share of people over 65 who are returning to the labor force, not just to get a few hours work, but you can see that a huge percentage of them, over 55%, are working full-time. And so that there has been a dramatic transformation of the process of retirement. It's become a sort of ephemeral process. So people are retiring, going back to work, and then much, much later, retiring once again. And so that's a dynamic that we need to look at. As a result of this, you can see that the share of wages and salaries for those over 65 is actually increasing. And the share 45 to 65 is also increasing. At the same time, the share 25 to 44 is decreasing. So these are really important changes we look at. Let's jump over this. What we wanted to do was to say, what are the implications of some of this for income inequality? And the Miyazawa system basically has a path, a structural path, if you like, through the system, where we move from income to consumption, generates output, which generates income. And so this cycle provides us with a way of tracing the impacts of income change. And what we find is that there are significant differences at the macro level in terms of things like the macro propensity to consume by households of different age, and the share of total income which is associated with each one of these age groups. And just a couple of slides illustrate this. You can see that the propensity to consume by income quintile, this is the lowest 20% to the highest 20%, very, very different. How come people are spending more than the income that they have? Because that's government transfers, all right? So as a result, they generate 2.5 for every dollar of income that they get. The highest income group do not spend as much. So we've got not quite a monotonic decline, but it's pretty significant. This is sort of the crux of the Miyazawa system. What this matrix shows us is if you give $1 of additional income to each one of these quintiles, what happens to it? Where does it end up? And what we find is a pronounced asymmetry. When low-income people receive an additional $1 of income, the major beneficiaries are the highest income groups through the indirect effects. When high-income people receive an additional $1 of income, the major beneficiaries are high-income people, not low-income people. And this asymmetry is very dramatic. And that's shown in the, for 2010, in the table at the right, where the quintile 1, the lowest income quintile, 49% of the indirect effects go to the highest income group. When the highest income group gets an additional $1 of income, only 1.9% goes to the lowest income group. So what we're seeing here is the underlying dynamics that are promoting and sustaining income inequality. And this is something you can't get and see from a Gini index. But this sort of analysis, I think, is really important and powerful for us to understand it. So when we think about investing additional money and we give income to low-income people, yes, they generate a huge impact on the economy because they spend most of it, all right? And this is the multiplier effects. But where does that money end up? in the higher income groups. And what we've seen is not only this in terms of income, but in spatial terms. In the UK, we found that no matter where the UK government spends money, the indirect effects accumulate in London. And I suspect that if you looked at Seoul, if you looked at Indonesia, the capital city would again be the place where most of those income effects accumulate. So what we're suggesting here is we need to elaborate in our models much more carefully, much more thoughtfully about this demographic side. We've fascinated to have 500 sectors in our models, but we need to have less sectors perhaps and many more disaggregations of our household by age, by income, by race, by location. And these, I think, are really important developments. Finally, I think that our policy challenges here are to really understand that policymakers have got to be convinced that the direct effects of policy are just not sufficient to make an evaluation. And in the UK, for example, there's something called leveling up, where they're giving money to the less developed regions, but it's having zero impact in terms of reducing disparities because of the process that we articulated for Chicago. It's leaking out into other regions and accumulating in the already prosperous regions. So this is a real challenge for development. The final point is the demographic changes are going to become increasingly important, particularly as a result of national and international migration that's been accelerated by climate change. People escaping droughts, people escaping floods, rising sea levels. And so these are going to play an increasing role in regional development. So young people, there's a huge amount of wonderful research for you to conduct. And if you want to talk about it, I will be happy to do some more brainwashing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Geoffrey Hewings, for your enlightening presentation. Thank you. Our next keynote speaker is Euijune Kim. Euijune Kim is a distinguished scholar in spatial economics and regional development. Serving as a professor at Seoul National University, he has significantly advanced the field of economic geography and spatial analysis. Professor Kim has an extensive publication record and has provided expert advice to numerous governmental and international organizations. Additionally, he is set to become the next president of the Western Regional Science Association that Dr. Jaeon Lim just introduced. And his contribution has been recognized with numerous awards, including International Academic Research Award from Korean Planners Association and the Academic Award of Regional Economics from the Korea Economics and Business Association. So please welcome Professor Kim.
Thank you, Chairman. Not Chairman, Professor Chan. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor to share my idea with all of you in this conference. First of all, I'd like to appreciate for the organizing committee to make this conference wonderful. Today's topic is how the transport improvement affects regional economic growth. As you know that since the pioneer papers of the Asia War in 1989, there have been so many topics, so many papers regarding to this issue. Then most of them, they share almost the same result, that the infrastructure has positive effect on economic growth. However, if you look at the effect by region or by sector, we might have different story. For example, the region or the sector have the complementary relationship, then we might expect some positive effect on there. But if there is some competitive relationship between them, definitely negative effect on sector or economic growth. This point is my main issue to address the today's presentation. Okay. All right. Let me start with the introduction. My presentation is based on a series of papers regarding the integrating the CG model with transport network. It is my fortune to work with the Professor Geoffrey Hewings, and also the Professor Hong-Seok Brian Kim, the same university. We work together and spend some time to develop the models. Actually, the 3 papers have been published in Economic Systems and Journal of Transport Economics and Policy about 15 to 20 years. All right. Okay. Let me start with some Korean saying. 가까운 이웃이 먼 지적보다 낫다. That is Korean. So if I try to translate in English, you may say that a close neighborhood is better than a distant relative. You know that traditionally Korean society has high value on the family and kinship. But in spite of that, neighborhood who is geographically close to me sometimes can be much more helpful than relatives who are far away from me. So this is one of the examples to highlight the significance of physical proximity. Let me borrow another saying, expression from China. In Korean, 불가원 불가근. If I try to pronounce it in Chinese, 북어란 북어친. I don't know if I'm correct or not. But anyway, the means is that neither too distant nor too close. That means this expression has emphasis on the need to keep balance or suitable distance in our interaction. In this case, the distance might have some different meaning. For example, physical distance, economic distance, psychological distance, or organizational distance. But anyway, this expression has more emphasis on the optimal distance between masses. For example, we all of us have experiencing the COVID-19 since the 2020. You know that there's some social distancing policy that is a 2.4 meter or 6 feet. I guess that is the minimum physical distance to prevent virus spread, or economic distance required to sustain the consumer economics. So based on the distance concept, today my topic keyword is a transport improvement. So in this case, that keyword, including not only just the construction of the railroad or highway, but also the technological innovation in construction, operation, and maintenance, also including the improvement of service levels, such as frequency, reliability, or spatial coverage. But in this presentation, I'd like to define transport improvement as the reduction in transport cost here. So generally, we classify, the impact of the transport improvement could be classified into 2 different terms. The first one is a distributive effect. Another is a generative effect. So what is a generative effect? That is a creation of the new economic opportunity or value or social benefit. the source of the generative effect one of the sources is allocative externalities that could be generated by the interaction between the network economics or agglomeration economics or spatial integration, even in mobility. So let me talk of my agenda. So you know that the development or construction of highway infrastructure is one of the popular or widely adapted regional development tools to enhance the local accessibility and generated short-term impact on economies. However, it is not always possible. Sometimes, for example, that South Korea facing the decline in population, or some case the decline population in small and medium cities and rural area. So that means that the total amount of population never reached the last year. So in that challenge, some case the development of the highway might cause population outflow from periphery regions, thereby some widening regional disparity. So I have two research questions. The first one is how do improvement in highway infrastructure generated and distributive effects within the spatial economy? Another one is what factors determine the magnitude or direction of impact resulting from the highway development. So I will show some result based on my computational experiment on the reduction in transportation cost through the highway connection in South Korea. And I will talk about very briefly, some methodology. And the final part of my presentation, talking about the further research issues, such as network city, equilibrium conditions for sustainability, measuring the optimal distance between cities and regions, and also the redefining the distance in the urban economics. All right, that is the background theory for the transportation cost. But I think the following is at the text level. So I have prepared for three theories, basic theories, but I try to deliver some summary of the message. The first one is, that the most popular one is Alonso-Moose model. That is the built up in the 1960s. But I followed this idea from the Jan Bruckner, 2011, the lectures on urban economics. So the Alonso-Moose model, that they provide us with the theoretical framework for the distribution of land use within urban areas. One of the keywords is the bid rent. That the bid rent is a maximum rent. I'm willing to borrow the parcels of land or housing. So according to Alonso-Moose model, we try to maximizing the rent. The result is you might find that the marginal change in rent with respect to distance is equal to the transport cost per unit to housing demand. So if you look at the right-hand side, if transport cost decreases, what happened? According to this theory, the residential location definitely shifted to the suburb area of city. And second one is we're going to expect some expansion of urban size. Second theory is the agglomeration economy of Vancouver 2007. This paper also provides with the computational framework to explore how transport infrastructure or reduction in the transport cost, the increase the urban output through the agglomeration economy and the urban size. I'd like to skip this part. And last one, the third one is, that the new economic geography. So you might heard that the core and periphery models Paul Krugman. So this framework also provide us how to account for the spatial distribution of economic activities, not land use, using the 5 key concepts such as the increasing return to scale, or iceberg type transport cost, or labor mobility, and home market effect, and last one is a cumulative causation. Okay, I'm gonna skip here. Oh, sorry. All right, let me go to the simulation part. So my research issues, as I told you, two things. The first one is how the change in transport cost affect urban agglomeration and dispersion. Second one is if this kind of effects vary depending on the attribute of area connected to highways such as the core region or periphery regions. So to find some solution, I try to make some SCG model and conduct a kind of the computational experiment on the reduction of transport cost on the 3 highway connections. Actually, this kind of model based on the spatial unit and city and county. So in South Korea, it's composed of the 229 city and county. So I call the SCG model. The spatial unit is a city and county. So you might think that this model is composed of 229, for example, producers, or 229 consumers model. Just the simulation, I prepare for 3 different kinds of cases. For example, so I just think the transportation network could be developed between high-income region and high-income region. That is case 1. The second one is the highway is built between high-income region and low-income region. Last one is a connectivity between low-income regions. So what is the definition of the low-income region and high-income region? I just defined that, in this case, the high-income region is a top 20% in terms of the per capita income, and low-income region is the income level is the bottom 20%. So actually, we have 229. So top high-income region might be 60. Low-income region have 60. So if you counted some combination, the total sample size is 6,210 samples. But it is impossible to carry out all of them. So I just randomly select samples, just 1%. So based on the 1% sample, I try to make the simulation here. The right-hand side, that is the road network in South Korea. Let me give you some landscape of the economic or urban cluster in South Korea. If you look at the left-hand side, so you might find some yellow part, red part, stretch along from north to south. That is based on the logistics. Based on the logistics, we can define Seoul cluster or Seoul economic cluster. The pattern, geographical pattern, is a little bit different from what we expect, right? We are in Daegu. That is the color, brown. So there's small one. Yeah. So anyway, the Seoul economic cluster is a kind of the stretched wrong from the north and south. Okay. All right. This is the production income and production income per capita. The darker, the darker the color, the high the income level is. So I mean, you might find some darkest in the near to Seoul. That is the highest income region in South Korea, and the less dark might be some below the average income in South Korea. All right, that is population size and population density. So you might find some concentrations around the Seoul. And that is number of workers and workers per population. Might be we say that labor market participation. So if you right-hand side of the figure, the darkest is the highest opportunity to work or to be employed in among the 229 regions in Korea. Okay, there is a population accessibility and education accessibility. So you know that the accessibility, there's so many discussions of what kind of function to measure the accessibility or what should use some data set. But in this case, I just borrow the Hansen potential index. So the accessibility is just defined as for example, popular accessibility is a population divided by distance, right? Okay. All right. Let me give you the assumption and some novel aspect of the CG model. The first one, the assumption. Assumption is the conventional assumptions underlying in the CG model. The first one is everything is interconnected, indirect or indirect way. Second one is price and quantities matters in terms of the decision making for a producer and consumer. And last one is a market always going to equilibrium conditions. That is the assumption here. And what about the novel aspect or distinguished point from our CG model from the other conventional one? First, we take into account the agglomeration economy using the population density, and also we reflect the economic growth pattern. And third one is our key variable. We include some link of transport cost and accessibility to the supply and demand side, the long distance economy, as well as we consider the migration and mobility. In particular, the migration mobility is a quite important aspect in our models. All right, for data, actually it is almost impossible to make a trade data among city and counties. So we have to borrow some data set. I mean, not borrow. We use the data set of the input of tables, they published in base year 2015. So fortunately, the Bank of Korea, they published the multi-regional input of table, at base of province or state. So you know that the South Korea is composed of 17 state or province. So we restructured. I mean, we transformed the data set into county and cities. So that is the quite boring job to convert that kind of work. So anyway, that is key data set for us. Let me tell some specification. So as I told you, this model is composed of 229 cities and counties. So we assume that there is only one representative producer and one representative consumer in each region. So in this model, we have 229 producers and 229 households in the model. And the rest of them are some conventional specification.
in the CG model. So I just skip here. All right. In one of the issues, how to model transport cost in the CG model. According to literature review, there are 3 ways here. The first one is the iceberg approach. For example, tradable goods melt away like iceberg during the transport. It represents the transport cost as the reduction in the quantity of goods upon arrival. For example, one of the key paper is over right here, the Ishikura 2020 paper. The second one is accessibility approach. In this case, the value added is one of the the value added is determined by the traditional factor input as well as population density as well as the accessibility. So the iceberg approach is the value in the value. Some portion could be the transport cost, but in the second approach, actually we don't have to take into such the transport cost in the price side, but we consider the proxy variables for the transport cost with the accessibility index. The third one is I called explicit pricing approach. It is very simple. Sale price is production price plus transport cost. So if there's some change in transport cost, might be sale price is fluctuated, right? The main paper is Ando and Meng, Economic System Research, 2009. So look at the figure. So you might find out the transport infrastructure. That's the shock starting from that point. So if we built up some transport infrastructure, for example, between high-income region and the high-income region, then we can calculate the transport cost or transport time that inverted to accessibility with some information on the spatial distribution of population, and then accessibility effect on the productivity, and productivity also the value added through the change in long distance economy and agglomeration economies. All right, that is the schematic, the idea on the SCG model. All right, so the shock starting from the transport improvement, then we calculate how much reduction in transport cost, then convert it to the accessibility, and accessibility, the value of accessibility is injected to the spatial CG model, then we get some generative or distributive effect of transport improvement. All right, this is result. Actually, I'm sorry. Actually, if you look at these figures, I can find some solid result. There's the inconclusive part in the result. For example, we have 3 different cases. As I told you, the first one is a connectivity between high-income region and high-income region. So that is the red line. So if you look at the change in transport cost from high to low, then you might find some exponential growth. That means that is the computational experiment result. So in the schematically, after passing the moderate the transport cost, the economic growth rate is a quite exponential pattern, right? What about the second one, the blue one? Blue one is a connectivity between high-income region and the low-income region. That growth pattern is almost linear. But however, if you look at the low transport cost, the result there are so many diverse outcomes for these cases. So I cannot say any solid result. I just say the inconclusive area. The last one, green one, that is connectivity between low-income region and low-income region. Then what happened? That is might be most desirable pattern, I think. For example, from the high transport cost to the moderate, then we might find some smooth growing the economic benefit, and some point we call it a threshold point. There are the growth pattern might be some decrease down, but anyway the positive one we say the small generative and distributed effect. So in the red dot, I mean the threshold point, beyond the threshold point, we say that the highway contributed economic growth as well as the positive effect on the income distribution and the regional scale. So from these figures, some of them is the expected result. I mean, very similar to the result based on the new economic geography, but some of them are the different one. All right. So what is the implication? You know that from the computational experiment, the outcomes of transport improvement depends on the scale of the reduction in transport cost. What is it? From the high transport cost to low transport cost, as well as type of regional economic attribute. We have three different cases. So it is challenging to generalize this kind of result. So even if we control the mass of and attributed origin and destination as well as distance, but the problem is so complicated because we cannot control for example, the spatial economic and demographic factors of highway through area. So, to understand this kind of dynamics, might be we have some another research issues. For example, what factor determine the interaction between transport cost and economic benefit? And what triggers qualitative shift? I mean the threshold point. So what determines the threshold point here? And the third one is how can we measure it? And also how can we interpret it in concrete section in this result? That is our research issues. Let me go to the final part. All right, I raised the three different research issues. The first one is try to measure the contribution, the impact of the transport improvement to the development of network city and compact city. Why? Because that for example, network city and compact city is one of the solutions for the location optimization plan of Japan. And also as I told you, we have facing some problems such as the population decline in rural area and small and medium cities. So the experts talking about some development of the compact city, also some trying to design on the network city. So what is the relationship between network city and transportation cost? What is the interaction between compact city and the transport cost? The second one, how we find out some equilibrium point for urban sustainability, or what is the optimal distance? Of course, distance has some various concepts, but anyway, what is the optimal distance between cities? For example, what is the optimal distance between Daegu and for example, Busan, for example. The last one, So we have some significant shift toward work from home policies under the influence of increased virtual interactions. So we might redefine the role of the distance. So some scholars are talking about some diminishing or the disappearing distance. So what is the role of the distance in urban economies? Right. Okay. Sorry. All right. That is what I prepare for this presentation. So thank you for your attention, also the patience. So I hope to see you in the future conference and enjoy the rest of the day. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your insightful presentation about distance and transportation costs in spatial economics. Okay, before finishing this session, I have an announcement. So if you are doing the smart city tour, you need to go to gate 3 right away. And also tonight, actually it was not included in the program book, but KRSA will have a reception at Joy's Chicken right next to Exco at 6:30. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.